Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. How are you finding yourselves on the path to Nibbana? Do you take a temperature check every day? Where am I on the path? Or is it a once a year thing? Like Christmas? Or is it something you just do for the new year? Because it's a nice to do. You know, a lot of people, they do listen to sermons because it's a nice to do. Don't they? A lot of people go to the temple because it's a nice to do. It's a dumb thing, you know. Again, because to be someone in society, you have to tick all the boxes. Tick all the boxes which indicate to society that you're a good person. So what entails a good person? First, you have to have a good education. Right? This is how society determines if you're a good person. You have to have a good education, so people go through and get themselves a good education. Then you have to have a good job. So what's a good job? Yes, your job. That's a good job. That's the easiest way to do it, right? So whatever job you're doing, that's a good job. I'm not here to make enemies. So you have to get yourself a good job. Then you have to get yourself a good wife or a good husband. You have to then buy yourself a good house or build yourself one. Make some good investments. And generally lead a good life. But among that, people expect you to show that you're a nice person, you're a good person, you're a person that people can associate, get along with. Someone who's not too much of a risk to associate. So what's the best way to show that you're not too much of a risk to associate? Have a religion. Because people have some faith in religion. They may not believe in religion. Some people don't believe in religion, any religion. They're called atheists. But at least they know that someone who's religious, broadly the expectation is someone who is at least minutely religious is generally a good person in society. If you go to the mosque, if you go to the church regularly, if you go to the temple, if you worship the Buddha, if you offer flowers, if you light a candle, it shows that you have a good side to you. So a lot of people do go to the temple to tick that box so you can appear to society as a good person. Not for any other reason, but because you want to stand out in society as a good person. Because it's only then you are able to have such associations with other people who respect you for that. And it's only then are you able to get them to scratch your back. Again, this is to feed the self. This is to satisfy a very selfish agenda. Some people, they wear lots of piritnul, you will have seen. Quite thick ones as well. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, if you do it for the wrong purpose, then there's something people, you have to consider. Why do you do it? Of course, there is protection that can be gained by chanting pirit and by wearing a piritnul. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes there are people who do it for the show. And I'm sure you'll know some people like that. Not you, of course. People you know. Sometimes a whole several centimeters thick Just so that when they wave their arm, you can see, oh, they have a piritnul on their hand, so they must be a good person. Some people only dress in white. Again, because these are symbols to demonstrate virtue. Socially accepted symbols to demonstrate virtue. Socially accepted symbols to demonstrate that you are a good person, a kind person. So, when you do that, now people are more willing to associate you. And when they do so, you are now able to ask for favors. You are able to get them to do things for you. It's for these reasons. So what we need to consider is how many of such things do we do? Are we using religion, are we using Buddhism for entirely the wrong reasons? Why do you call yourself a Buddhist? Why do you go to the temple? Why do you listen to Bhana? What is the purpose? Is it to satisfy somebody else, or is it to achieve something really special? Achieve your goal, your ambition? Is it that, or is it to satisfy somebody else? Tick a box. So you must consider that. Ask yourself, and be honest about it. Because no matter who you fool, there's one person you cannot fool. Who is that? Yourself. You can't fool yourself. You know exactly why you're doing something. No matter what the world believes or what you want everyone else to believe, you can't hide it from you. You know exactly why you're doing it. So, it's only yourself you harm, you damage by putting up pretenses. And that can be quite harmful. Because what can happen is, when you start putting up appearances, putting up pretenses, you become the victim of that. The purpose of doing it in the first instance was to get through a certain situation. Because someone expected to see you in that way. This was how society was willing to see you, with a piritnul in your hand, or dressed in white. Just think about this for a moment. How many young boys fall into this trap when they go to the temple? And the other way around as well. Young girls, young boys, teenagers, they go into the temple and then they see other teenagers. So boys see girls, girls see boys. So when they're dressed in white, with some flowers in their hand, maybe standing by an oil lamp, pouring oil into an oil lamp, worshipping the Buddha, immediately, when you look at that girl, when you look at that boy, you're thinking, oh, she's a really good girl. She's very kind, she's very good. And girls would think the same of boys. Because you associate someone who goes to the temple. The temple's a good place, so if someone's at the temple, then that person has to be good. Or you go to the church. The church is a good place, so if someone goes to the church, then that person has to be good. The mosque is a good place, so if someone goes to the mosque, then that person has to be good. You make those associations, those linkages you make in your mind, and you come to conclusions. Then you fall into the trap. Sometimes she or he is the most promiscuous person in town. Indiscriminate relationships left, right and center. But now she's at the temple with a basket, with some flowers in her hands. And then when you look at her, dressed in white, hair tied to the back, flowers in hand, standing by the Buddha statue, what do you feel? Oh, she's a goddess. She's an angel. She has to be a lovely person. Best I should go and get her number, just in case. These are traps people fall into. People actually, some are so conniving that they actually do set up these traps. When a mother is finding it difficult to give a girl's hand in marriage, people do these things. They dress the girl up in white, all nice and neat and tidy and flowers in hands, and then she takes her to the temple. A couple of evenings a week, and when young boys come along, they get to see this girl, and then before long, she's found herself a partner. Now, mother's problem solved. These things happen in society. Oh, they do. You should know. You live in society. I know because people come and tell me that these are the things that they do. So watch out. Well, no matter what other people do, the question is, do you do such things? If so, then they are wrong. It's not right to do such things. Because now you're using Buddhism as a scapegoat to achieve ulterior motives. Using religion to achieve ulterior motives. And that is incredibly wrong. The consequences of which people will have to suffer because you're abusing it. Again, that is desecration. Is it not? All of that falls into Aripod. Because you're desecrating the Dhamma. That's abusing the Dhamma. Abusing the Buddha, abusing the Sangha. Abusing religious places of worship. Should never be done. But don't fall into these traps. So, weeks are flying by. I think this is about the 70-something sermon that is happening this week. So that's lots of sermons we've been doing. How are you getting on? Sometimes I feel like a doctor. This is my clinic, opening at 4 o'clock every Sunday. Sometimes new faces, sometimes same patients come to get treatment. Oh, don't you worry, I'm a patient myself. This is why I'm in red. This is the clothes they put you in when they take you into the operation theatre. So my condition is much more serious than yours. You can come and go, this is the OPD, the outpatients department. But my condition is much more severe. I need operation. Right? So don't you worry. I'm in the same boat, except I'm in a worse state than you are. So this clinic opens on Sunday at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it's open till about 6 o'clock, 6:30. Do you enjoy going to a clinic? Do you enjoy going to clinics? Or would you rather do something else with your time? You should rather do something else with your time, surely. The reason one goes to a clinic is because they're ill, they're sick, they need treatment. This is why I always remind you, this is not a place to come and party. This is not a get-together that we all come along and have a little chat, have something to eat, and say goodbye, let's meet next Sunday. That shouldn't be this place. It shouldn't be, it really shouldn't be. This is somewhere you should come to get treatment. This disease of samsara, raga, dvesha, moha. That is what we are here to treat. So, if you come along and take prescriptions, if you come along and we take your pulse every Sunday, check your heartbeat, put the stet onto your lungs and check how your lungs are working, right? All these things that we check is only so that the week following that, you're able to take your medicines and make some differences in your lifestyle. Get better. Treat yourself. So if you're not doing that, then coming along to these sessions is a waste of time and money. Is it not? It will be if you don't take the time to treat yourselves while you're at home. So how do you check how you're progressing on the path? Think about some of the things you are addicted to. People are addicted to lots of things. What are some of the things people are addicted to? Food. That's number one, right? Food addictions. Some are addicted to chocolate. Some are addicted to pizza. Some are addicted to sweets. Others could be addicted, to lots of things. All types of food people are addicted to. How are your addictions now? Are they getting better or have they worsened? Some people are addicted to other things like pornography. Particularly young people addicted to pornography. How are those addictions coming along? Is it getting better or is it getting worse? Do you find yourself sitting in front of the computer more so than you used to? Not for the purpose of using it for informational purposes, but for a mind abuse. Sitting in front of that computer, whiling away the hours, watching pornography. People are addicted to that. You will know. You may have children who have such addictions. There are others who are addicted to drugs. There are others who are addicted to watching TV. There are those who are addicted to playing computer games. All of these addictions. Some are addicted to reading books. Some are addicted to going places and traveling. Some are addicted to... The people come up with hobbies. There's nothing wrong with a hobby, but sometimes it can be an addiction. Some are addicted to listening to music. No matter what they do, they've always got their headphones on. They just can't do anything without their headphones on. I know people like that. Even when they're in class, teachers in class teaching something, they've still got their earphones on, headphones on, listening to music. Addictions. How are they coming along? Are they getting worse or are they getting any better? Because no matter what it is you're addicted to, all of these are based in attachment. Attachment to whatever. Because as we discussed last week, if you were here, the way we know about the world is through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body. So whatever it is that you are addicted to, whatever hobbies you might have, all of these things are things in the world that you experience through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body. There's no other way you can experience that. And the reason that we have such associations, we seek such associations, is because we expect to be pleased, we expect to find pleasure in engaging in such activities. Why does one watch TV? Well, you could say it's because I want to learn about the world. Fair enough. One might say because I need to learn a recipe so I can cook something for lunch. Fair enough. Nothing wrong with that. You have to eat and live and get along in life. But there are others who just sit in front of the TV. Think, have you never done this? Just sat in front of the TV. Just because you had some spare time, switch on the TV and you sat in front of it. You didn't even realize several hours have passed by. You start flicking the channels, one after the other, and then several hours later you realize there was lots of work I was supposed to be doing right now, but all of that was left undone because of your addiction. You're trying to seek pleasure by watching TV. You're trying to seek pleasure by sitting in front of the computer, just browsing away on the internet. Scanning through your photo albums. Some people enjoy that a lot. Going through old pictures, either on the phone or photo albums, whatever. I'm not saying any of these things are bad things to do. They're not. Because they're not one of the unmeritorious deeds. That would be a bad thing. But what I'm saying is, these could become addictions. And if they become addictions, then they are a barrier to your Nibbana. They are a block, they are a hindrance to your Nibbana. Because when you're in Nibbana, you can't be attached to anything, not even the Dhamma. Some people, monks particularly, can attach themselves to the Dhamma. So we have to be careful. Because the thing is, with the Dhamma, the more you study the Dhamma, the more invigorating it can be. It can be so addictive after you start reading the Tripitaka, one discourse after the other. You can be mesmerized by how profound the Buddha's teaching is. Every sutta you read, it's tantalizing. And you just keep going on and on and on and on. Sometimes you forget why you opened the Tripitaka in the first place. So the Dhamma can be addictive as well. Anything can be addictive. Absolutely anything. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and the Dhamma can be addictive. So one has to be very careful. Because no addiction is going to get you to Nibbana. All addictions have to cease at the point before Nibbana. So ask yourselves, how are you getting along? Of course, I can't have one-to-one conversations with you, but you can have one-to-one conversations with yourself. How's your past week? What addictions did you foster? What addictions did you give into? Were there times when you were at home and what you really should have done was perhaps say, do your washing, or sweep the house, or do your homework, but you saw the TV and you thought, let me just go and watch some TV. It was the easy thing to do. You went there, sat down in front of the TV, started watching it. An hour went by, 2 hours went by, 3 hours went by. You just wasted 3 hours of your life. You got nothing out of it, except for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankhara Vijnana. Arose and passed away. But nothing gained out of those 3 hours. 3 hours that you'll never get back again. 3 hours gone by. You know, the other day when I was speaking to our young monks, I was asking them, what do you think is the biggest hindrance to Nibbana? I was asking them. There were about 15 of them, and asking them, what do you think is the biggest hindrance to Nibbana? So they're coming up with all sorts of answers. Some of them saying, it's Mara. Mara is the biggest hindrance to Nibbana. Another saying it's not having knowledge of the Dhamma. That's the biggest hindrance to Nibbana. So lots of answers coming out. And if I asked you now, what is the biggest hindrance to Nibbana, or practicing the path, then you will also have lots of things to say. Some will say it's work. Others will say it's my wife. Others will say it's my child. Right? Others will say it's my mortgage. It's my credit card. People will have lots of things to say. But I think that's not what our biggest hindrance to Nibbana is. There is one thing that is the biggest hindrance to Nibbana, which is true for all of us. And that is that you haven't been diagnosed with terminal cancer yet. That is the biggest hindrance to Nibbana. You have not yet been diagnosed with terminal cancer. What if you fainted today? You were rushed to the hospital and you got diagnosed with terminal cancer. Which excuse are you now willing to offer? To say, this is why I cannot practice the path. This is why I don't have the time. These are all the duties and responsibilities I have, and therefore I just don't have the time to practice the path. Which excuse are you going to give? Is it your mortgage? Is it your husband? Is it your wife? Is it your child? Which one? Is it that I need 8 hours of sleep? Which one? I know this because a lot of people do come to the monastery. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. It really is unbelievable. How a lot of people come and they want to talk to us. People who came and went, they had no intention of coming and listening to a sermon. Until they were diagnosed with a terminal illness. And when they are, now they want to come and listen to the Dhamma. Now they want to understand the path to Nibbana. Now they don't have time to waste. So these are all people surely that didn't realize that they could die any moment. Before they were diagnosed, what did they think then? I'm not going to die. Not anytime soon, right? That's what they thought. Because otherwise, why is it after someone's been diagnosed with a terminal illness, the very next day they're here, 6 o'clock in the morning? Why? Why did they not feel to do that the previous day? The day before they were diagnosed? Because they thought they were invincible. I cannot be touched. I'm invincible. Not invisible, invincible. I cannot be touched. Mara cannot get me, death cannot come anywhere near me. Do you feel like that? What excuses do you have to practice in the path? Is it because you're too busy? Because I do tell you every time, remember, don't forget this. And sometimes I wish I could give you the feeling with which I express these words. But alas, I can only give you the words. I cannot convey the feeling that I have in my heart when I say some of these things, in my mind when I say some of these things, such as, I can only give you the 20% while you're here. 80% of practice in the path you have to do in your own time. And your own time is time you have to find for yourself. It's while you're at work, it's while you're at school, it's while you're getting to work, it's while you're getting back from school. It's while you're chopping your carrots, doing the dishes, doing your laundry. You've got to find the time. Am I going to find the time for you to practice the path? How can I do that? I can't do that. You are living your life. I'm living mine. So it's down to each and every one of us to find the time to practice. It's practice that makes perfect. I can only give you a very small portion of what you need. The doctor can only give you the prescription. It's down to each and every patient to get themselves the medicines and then drink it. Until when? Until they've been cured. Can the doctor force feed medicines to this patient? No, there is no such mechanism. Certainly not in Buddhism. If it's at the hospital, they might be able to hold your mouth forcefully and put the drugs in your mouth and put some water so that you drink it whether you like it or not. But with the Dhamma you can't do that. Because your mind has to be willing to accept. I can't brainwash you to understand Nibbana, to accept that Nibbana is the only salvation. Nibbana is the only freedom. I can't brainwash you to do that. It has to come from within. Now I'm not saying any of this out of spite. Please don't take it that way. But you must really consider this. I guarantee that people who come along, listen to sermons whether here or anywhere else, once you've been diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, you will not fall asleep from that point forward. It just won't happen. Why? Now you don't know when. I've only got such a short time within which I can do this. So every second matters. Every minute, every hour matters. But until such time, I've got time. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the day after. Do you not really feel sorry for yourself? If the reason that you are able to find excuses to not practicing the path is that you have not yet been diagnosed with a terminal illness, if that is the reason that you are able to come up with excuses to not practicing the path, shouldn't you pity yourself? This is something I said with our young monks, to remind them how earnestly and how vigorously they have to practice the path. So don't think this is something I'm taking on you, but this is something I told them at the monastery and something I thought I should share with you. Remember, only 20% we can give here. The rest 80% has to happen at home. It has to happen at your workplace. It has to happen at the playground. It has to happen while you're doing your chores at home. Are you doing them? If not, then you're probably wasting your time coming here. You're probably wasting your money coming here. A Sunday afternoon you could have done lots of things. If you're not practicing, then it really is very little point in coming along. You're just occupying someone else's seat. Am I sounding too harsh? That's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm only saying this because I feel for you. If only I was able to convince you all to ordain, I would do that. But I can't. One, because, of course, you have duties and responsibilities. I can't take them on upon myself to solve them so that you can come and ordain. And also, secondly, because sometimes, there may not be the environment suitable for you to come and ordain. But if neither of these two are reasons, then if it was down to me, I would make you all ordain. I would ordain you by force if it was down to me. The reason I say this is because once you have come to this life, then every moment that passes by is a moment for you to practice the path. I have no excuse. Unlike you, I have no excuse because I don't have a family to feed. I don't have a job to do. I don't have any of those things. 24/7, except for the few hours while I'm sleeping. The rest of the time is time that I have to practice. I get to practice, not have to practice, I get to practice. But I do understand that for you, there are duties and responsibilities and chores that you have to attend to. So you may not have the freedom that I have. And the way I see it, you've been sold the short straw. It is such a pity. Because you and I, we have to sit the same paper at the end of this process. We are both studying for the same exam. Are we not? At the end of this course, you and I are both going to sit the same paper. Just because I'm a monk and you're a lay person doesn't mean you get a different paper to me. There are no leniences that are extended to you. You don't get extra time because you're a lay person. This paper, that is the paper of samsara. At the end of this birth, at the end of this lifetime, when your last breath falls, you're going to get that paper. On that paper is going to be how much raga do you still have? How much dvesha do you have? How much moha do you have? What marga phala have you achieved? These are the questions they're going to ask you. I have every hour of every day to study for this exam. Whereas you have whatever time is left after you have attended to everything there is you have to do at home, at work. Is it not unfair that we both get the same paper? Is it not unfair? It's so unfair. I admit, it's very unfair. But who can challenge? Who are you going to complain to? Where can you file a complaint? Where can you go and file a complaint and say, well, I was a doctor, so I had patients to attend to. And attending patients, that took up several hours of my day. About 10, 12 hours of my day I was treating patients. I only had maybe another 10 hours free. And in those 10 hours I had to feed my family. I had to take my children to school. I had to be with my wife. I had to watch TV to catch up on the latest going-ons in the world. I had to go and do other courses to get other qualifications. I had to go and travel the world to get more experience. And then I was only left with 15 minutes every day in which I could practice the path. Who are you going to say that to? No one's going to stand there and ask you, what are your extenuating circumstances. No one's going to ask you that. They're just going to give you the paper. And you're going to say, oh, excuse me, no, I don't want to hear. Can you imagine that? You and I will both be sat down for that paper. I'll be in a robe, you'll be in whatever uniform that you go to work in. If you're a doctor, you'll have a stet around your neck. If you're an engineer, you'll be sat in front of a computer possibly. If you're a lawyer, you'll be there with a mallet in your hand, right? And we're all sat down. Examiner comes in, same paper for all of us. How do you think we're going to fare? I've been studying every day, every hour, every moment I'm awake, studying for my exam. You've been studying 15 minutes a day. How do you think we're going to fare? Is it not so unfair we're going to get the same paper? It is so incredibly unfair. But what can we do about it? Nothing can be done about it. This is why I say, if it was down to me, I would force ordain all of you. Because I don't know how I can get this into your skulls. I would force ordain all of you if I could. Because at least then I could tie you up, sit you down, and talk the Dhamma to you and do nothing else. Until you understand. Until you realize that Raga, Dvesha, Moha has to be eradicated. And this is the path to do it. I really want you to get the feeling I'm trying to express here, ladies and gentlemen. And words do not do justice. I must admit, words do not do justice. So, every day, ask yourself, how am I doing on the path? It has to be something you do regularly. Like you check your tires before you set off on a journey. Like you check your oil in the fuel tank before you set off on a journey. Every day, check where are you on the journey. Before you go to bed, make sure you scrutinize the last 24 hours. How did I perform? Have yourself a report card. At the end of every day, ask yourself, how did I perform in the last 24 hours? Did I fall into the trap of Mara? When Raga came into my mind, how did I perform? A self-evaluation, essential, absolutely essential. How many times today did I become angry? How many times today did I make the wrong decision? When I had 15 minutes where I could listen to the Dhamma, did I go and choose to use those 15 minutes to watch TV for no reason other than just because TV is there, channels on, might as well? Remember, you've just whiled away 15 minutes of valuable human life that you can never get back. Am I saying don't watch TV? That's not what I'm saying. Am I saying don't spend time with your children? That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is be very careful, be very intelligent, be very thrifty with your human life. Be very wise about how you spend it. Because if you make the wrong investment, you're going to suffer. Make the right investment and you're going to get payback. For good or bad, all you have is your human life. And unfortunately, each and every one of us has to suffer the consequences ourselves. Your best friend can't step in to help you out. Your mother, your father, your daughter, your son, they can't step in to share the consequences if you have made the wrong investment. They brought you into this world, yes, your parents did. But they can't suffer on your behalf. They can't share your pain. You have to do it yourself. So be thrifty. Be very careful about how you spend your time. Many million times more than how you spend your money. Money can be earned if you misspend it. But what about time? Can you buy it back? No. This is why sometimes say, right, a person spends 10 years working at the same organization. 10 long years they labor at the same organization in the hope of achieving pleasure and happiness. 10 years later they realize that job never really made me happy. Now I challenge you. You might have earned a lot of money by working in that job. Maybe you made $1 million by working there. But one day you realize happiness is not in earning millions. Now, how can you go back to your employer and say, here's the $1 million that I earned while I was working at your company. Can I have back my 10 years, please? Can you do that? No. Because this is a one-way transaction, no return, no refunds. Sold as seen on TV. That's it. You can't give your money back and ask back for time. So this moment, right, this very moment that you're spending, can you get this back? This moment, this second, can you get it back? No. So should you not be careful how you spend this moment? See, it's past. Now you can't get it back. And that moment, that's also gone. And you can't get that back. It's like water dripping from a tap. You can't put that drop back into the tap. It's gone now. If you had collected it, you could have made use of it. But if that water has just flown away, you can't get it back. Much the same like your life. Every second that's ticking by is time that's never going to come back. So this very moment, you have to choose wisely what you do with it. Ask yourselves, do you always come up with excuses to practice the path? Oftentimes I tell you, before coming along to sermons, listen to previous sermons. And I know there are some among you who do. But there are others who will come up with excuses rather than having listened to a sermon. Excuse will be, I was too busy. I had somewhere to go. Work. School. This, that and the other. What about the time you're sat on the toilet? How much do you have to think about that process? When I was a layperson, I used to have a speaker. It was a Bluetooth speaker. I had it plugged into my bathroom. And so when I was at the toilet, before I went, I played on my phone, I pressed the play button, it was a sermon. So if I was there in the shower for 15 minutes, I could listen to the sermon in the background. I might not take all of it because I'm involved in something else, but it might be just one or two things that might change my life. At least that day I might live differently because I got to listen to that sermon. Maybe just 15 minutes. That's all that's needed. You don't need a lot, remember. It's 20% you need. The rest, 80% is in application. What about your commute to work? Are you still listening to your FMs on the way to work? Or are you listening to a sermon on the way to work? The world and its dog will want you to listen to the FMs, radio stations. They'll play beautiful music. They'll play Sinatra. They'll play Beatles. They'll play Bieber. Because that's what the world wants you to enjoy. This is a consumerized world, you mustn't forget. Whenever something's free, what's the product that's being sold? Why is Facebook free? What is the product that's being sold? You, the user. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. You should know that. If you're using something and it's given to you for free, then the product that's being sold is not the product that you're using. You are the product that's being sold. Advertising? Right? So you're listening to a radio station. Free, right? Do you have to pay to listen to a radio station? Now in this country, in other countries you do have to get a radio license, but in Sri Lanka you can listen to radio for free. I think that is how it still is. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you are listening to a radio station and it's free, what's the product that's being sold? If you're watching a TV channel and it's free to watch it, what is the product that's being sold? It's not the channel. It's you. You are being sold. To all the advertisers who are playing their adverts, who are making their money out of showing you these adverts, who are making their money out of getting you to listen to these adverts. So really, the consumer there is not you. You're not the consumer. The advertising companies, they're the consumers on whose behalf these media stations, these media channels have been made available. You are simply the product. Have you never considered that? Am I hurting your feelings? Why is Facebook free? Seriously, think about it. Does it not cost them money to come up with these, sustain, maintain these platforms, develop the technology for that? Right? Every other day there's a new update, right? So someone's working busily to produce these things and give them out to the world, and it's free. So if it's free, then how are they making their money? They're making their money through advertising. So that platform has been built for whom? For the advertisers. So what's being sold to the advertiser? You. So who's the product? You're the product. Yes or no? So what's your excuse then? If you're standing for the bus, right? Bus is in 3 minutes time. You're standing waiting for your bus to arrive. What do you generally do? Hand goes into the pocket. Out comes the phone. Phone gets unlocked. And then it's Facebook, WhatsApp, Viber, email, right? This, that and the other. Why not 5 minutes of listening to a sermon? That 5 minutes might transform your life. That 5 minutes might fill some gap in your understanding that is required to attain Nibbana. 5 minutes. That's all that may be needed. But no, you choose to go on Facebook. I have nothing against Facebook, by the way. I don't want Mr. Zuckerberg knocking on my door tomorrow. I have nothing against Facebook. All I'm saying is, how do you choose to use and spend your time? I used to go to the gym when I was a layperson. Every other day I went to the gym and spent an hour and a half there, just to maintain my physical fitness. And I remember a lot of people who come to the gym, they'll have TV screens. They'll play news and movies, songs. And what people do is they plug their earphones and then they're watching the movie and watching news and all sorts. And I thought, what a waste of time that is. My body is working to improve the body. Why can't the mind work to improve the mind during that time? So I took with me my library of sermons. And that's what I listened to. Before I got to listen to sermons, it was all about productiveness. How to live a productive life, how to make a lot of money, how to make the best investments. I think I've shared some of those stories with you in the past, so I'm not going to go over all the stuff. But ever since I got taste of the Dhamma, every moment I could find, I dedicated to listening to the Dhamma. Because that is what I realized my life is worth living for. You see, the thing is this. The day you get diagnosed with a terminal illness, you will do everything I just said. Yes or no? If today you get diagnosed with terminal illness, and the doctor says he gives you a maximum of 1 week, will you be spending the rest of the week exactly the same way you spent your last week? Will you? No. You know the answer. So then therefore, the reason that you spend your weeks this way and not that way is because in your mind, you're so certain of your life, aren't you? You're so certain that I'm never going to be diagnosed with cancer. I'm never going to die. I'm never going to fall ill. I'm just fine. That's what everybody thinks. Until they get the diagnosis. Everybody thinks that. The day this guy's been diagnosed, last night he went to bed thinking, I'm never going to get cancer. Because it doesn't come with warning. It just comes. When? When it's time to come, comes. No warning beforehand. So please be wise. Don't be foolish. Don't fall into the world's trap. All those immoral, ignoble people you have to meet on a day-to-day basis, at work, at school. Sometimes they could be relations. Sometimes your neighbors. They don't do it out of spite. They only do it because that's all they know. They'll talk to you about the latest film that's come out. They'll say, hey, did you not watch that movie yet? Let's go out this weekend, let's go and watch a movie. I'm not saying don't do it. But what I'm saying is, what they'll only try and do is pull you towards indulging yourself in sensuality. Sensuality that can be experienced through eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body. This is what your friends, your relations, your parents will entertain if they don't understand the value of the Dhamma. Be wiser. Be the better man. Be the better woman. Don't fall into that trap. Because when it's time to suffer, they're not going to suffer on your behalf. Okay. I'm going to move on to talk to you about something which I think is really important to understand in terms of the Dhamma and how you can apply yourself. For as long as you have your eyes open, for as long as there's an object in front of you, a sight, and for as long as there's a mind, there's a process called seeing that takes place. Yes? Your eye is functioning. There's an object in front of the eye, a sight. You have a mind. So we're talking about a live person. For as long as these three things have been lined up, the process of seeing is functioning. All understood? Okay. For as long as there's a functioning ear, sounds in the outside world, and a mind, for as long as these three things have been lined up, there's a process that's called hearing. And that process is running, is functioning. And the same applies for smell, taste, touch, right? So you get the idea. These are processes. So seeing is a process. Hearing is a process. Smelling is a process. Tasting is a process. Let's take the process of tasting. What are the three things that are required for this process to take place? What three things? Keeping it simple. Tongue, taste, and a mind. Because if there's no tongue, there's taste and mind. Will you be able to taste? There's a tongue, there's the mind, but there's nothing, there's no taste. Can you taste it? So taste involves, anything that has a taste, right? If you take a betel leaf, that has a taste. Piece of cake, that has a taste. Even water has a taste. Everything has a taste, right? Metal, doesn't metal have a taste? Yes. So put it to your tongue, you'll taste metal. That's why you say it's got a metallic taste. If you've not said that, everything has a taste. Sometimes your tongue is not sensitive enough to pick it up. Because all things are composed of apo, tejo, vayo, patavi, varna, gandha, rasa, oja. Rasa is the taste. So this octet, suddhastake, is there everywhere. All physical things have these 8 and their composition is different to each other. But we don't need to worry about that. The point I want to explain to you, try to get across to you is, for as long as there's a tongue that's functioning, for as long as there's taste in the outside world, when these two collide, and there's a mind which can accept, receive this happening, this going on in the outside world, this being is able to taste. So that's a process that's running. Now, how do you know that you're alive when you're living? How do you know you're alive? Beg your pardon, madam? Sorry, I didn't hear you. Breathing. Absolutely. Breathing. What is breathing? How do you know you're breathing? There's the body. There's touch, sensation. These two meet, collide. And in the mind, you're able to sense it. Because how do you know you're breathing? Your lungs are expanding and collapsing, expanding and collapsing. You can feel the air rushing through your nostrils and touching the insides of your nose, right? All of these are leaving sensations. Your nerve endings are being stimulated, and those stimulations taken through your brain give your body a stimulus. So again, it's sparsha, pottabha, and kaya. The body collide, and the mind is able to receive this. And in the mind you have Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. This is all that ever arose. This is all that arises, and this is all that ever will arise in the mind. These five. So again, when I ask you, how do you know you're alive? Breathing. One could say, I can feel my heart beating. Is it not the same thing? Again, it's body, touch, and a mind that's able to perceive this. How else do you know you're living? Well, you can see, right? You can see things. You can hear things. You can smell and you can taste. What if you couldn't see, you couldn't smell, you couldn't taste, you couldn't touch, you couldn't do any of these things? And I ask you, are you alive? Well, you've still got the mind. Thoughts come into the mind. Manancha paticca dhammecha. Remember? Dhamma come into the mind. And in the mind itself, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arise and pass away. So that is also a process. So thinking is a process. Much the same as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. All of these are processes. So tell me, how many processes are running in your system? 6, absolutely. There are 6 processes. Well, I've only got 5 fingers. You can add the other one. There are 6 processes that are continuously going on. At any given time, though, the mind can only accept one process, accept inputs from one process. So at any given at any given moment, the mind is either seeing something, hearing something, tasting something, smelling something, feeling something, or thinking about something. None of these 2 processes run at the same time. While the mind is hearing something, it may be that your eyes are open and there's an object in front of you, but the mind is not able to perceive it. Because every thought can only accept, or every chitta can only accept one thought object. Not 2, only 1. So when the mind is seeing, it's not listening. Although we think we are multitasking. We never multitasked. Never did. Never are. Never will be. Multitasking is not something we are capable of. Because only one chitta can arise at any given time. And that chitta has to pass away before the next one arises. And every chitta can only take one mental object. One arammana. And that arammana can either be a rupa, shabda, gandha, rasa, sparsha or dhamma. All with me so far? So there are 6 processes that are running. So when I ask you, how do you know you're alive? Your response has to be, one of these 6 processes are continuously running. Yes? If all these 6 processes come to an end, are you alive? No. You're dead. That's a dead person. If all these 6 processes come to an end, That's a dead person. Now, here's what I want us to think about, what I want us to consider. Let's take one of these processes, seeing. So, there's the eye, there's a sight. So when I say sight, I'm talking about a rupa, okay? An object which has a sight, so which has color. Basically, that's all you can perceive through your eyes. And in the mind, there's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that has just arisen, and it's going to pass away in a moment. So this seeing process is now running. My question is, where is the person that's seeing? The seeing process is now running, but where is the being, where is the entity that's seeing, that's looking? Where is this person? Where is it? The person that's seeing? Remember, there are three things that has to come together for seeing to function. First, there has to be a sight. Then there has to be the eye. And there has to be a mind. In the mind, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana rise. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana pass away. If you consider the sight, that's Apo Tejo Vayu Patavi. If you consider the I, that's also Apo Tejo Vayu Patavi. So my question is, where is the I? Not this I with a capital I. Where's the I? Where's the me in this process? Where is it? Well, in the mind it's just Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Where's the me? Because it has to be either at the beginning, or at the middle, or at the end of this process. Somewhere in the process, me has to be there. Or the I has to be there. Again, I don't like the fact that I and I sound the same, but I can't do anything about it. This is the self I'm talking about, okay? Me. So when someone says, I can see. Someone says, I can see. Okay, you're pointing at yourself, saying, I can see. Where's this I? Is it in the sight? Is it in the eye? Or is it in the mind? Where is it? It has to be somewhere. Let's take another process. The process of hearing. There's a sound. You just heard the bird? The bird's chirping outside, right? There was a sound there. We all have an ear. This is why we were able to hear it. And then there's a mind. In the mind, we know that when a chitta arises, it's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that arises, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that passes away. So there's a sound, there's the ear, and there's the mind. Where's the me? Where's the I that's listening to this sound? Where is he? Where is she? Because you do say, I'm listening, don't you? I'm listening. I'm smelling. Me, see? Me. I'm tasting. I am feeling. I'm thinking. So we say these things. My question is, where is the me? Where is the I that's doing the thinking? Where is the I that's doing the smelling, or the tasting, or the feeling, or the seeing, or the hearing? Where is this I? It either has to be at the beginning, at the middle, or the end. Which part of the process is me doing this? Where is the me? Where is the I? Are you saying it's in the brain? Okay. It's not there. So it's not in the brain, thankfully. So we've just figured that out. It's not in the brain. So where is it then? Because this is the process that's running, right? If you take taste, for instance. Okay, let's take a piece of cake. Now, a piece of cake has a taste. When you put that cake next to your tongue, now there's the tongue, the faculty, this Ingiriya that is required to taste the cake. And the moment these two things touch, putting aside all the sensory stimuli that's flowing through to your brain, by putting all the anatomy, the physiology, all of that to a side, we know that in the mind, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana rises, and Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana pass away. This is the start and end of that process. Taste, tongue, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana rose, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana pass away. Start to end. That is the process. My question is, where is the me? Where is the I that's tasting this cake? Can you find an I in this process? Can you find a me in this process? It's just a process. It's a process. Where is the doer in this process? But do you not feel that there is a doer in the process? Generally, do you not feel that there is a doer? When I ask you, what are you doing? You say, I'm looking. When you say, I am looking, do you genuinely not feel that there's a person, there's a doer that's looking? There's a me, see? There's me. I'm not talking about the physical body. But that's how you generally say, right? I am looking. I am smelling. I'm tasting. I'm feeling this. I'm in love. So where's the doer that's in love? Where's the person that has just fallen in love? Because love is again a process. It's the outcome of a process. How is that? There's a Dhamma. Love is a Dhamma, right? Because it doesn't have a side. There's no side smell. Although now we know the color of love is what? Red. That didn't make sense. You have to go and listen to previous sermons. Okay? So there's no sight, sound, smell, taste or touch about love. It's just a Dhamma. It's just a concept. But manancha paticca dhammecha. The mind comes into contact with this concept. And again, in the mind itself, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arises. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana passes away. So where's the I that's in love? Where's the me that's in love? Where's the person? Where's the individual that's in love? So here's the problem. 6 processes are running. Non-stop. They keep alternating. At one moment you're seeing something, next moment you're smelling something, next moment you're hearing something, next moment you're tasting something. Again, tasting, smelling, feeling, smelling, hearing, smelling, seeing. This is how your body is working. Constantly, this is what's going on in your mind. Yes or no? Smelling, seeing, tasting, smelling, feeling. It's like a non-stop factory inside your mind. One of these 6 processes are always running. Always alternating between each other. But where's the I that's smelling? Where's the me that's smelling? Now we know that if you look at the process, you can't find a me. If you take seeing again as an example, there's the sight of the object, there's the I, and in the mind, all you have is Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, nothing else. It's not Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana and me. There's no me there. It's only these are the 5 aggregates. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Not Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana and I. Or Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana and me. No. And take an Arahant for instance. What we know is an Arahant is someone who has eradicated the self. There is no self for an Arahant. But even in an Arahant's mind, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arise and pass away. Again, still a process. But an Arahant does not have a me that's looking. Does not have an I that's seeing. There's no I smelling. Smelling is happening. The process is happening. But there's no person doing it. But for you and I, we have a person. We have this entity. We have an individual that's doing this. So the question is, where did he come from? Where did she come from? This is that baby Natasha, if you remember, from long ago. How did baby Natasha come into the world? Was that a natural process? No, a very unnatural process. Because the mother went mad. And she began to think that she is with child. And then she brought baby Natasha into this world. So, it's ignorance that's responsible for creating a self that does not really exist. Agreed. When you look at something, you feel that it's me who's looking. Agreed. Even I feel that. I must admit, even I feel that. But I know that that's wrong. I know that although I feel it, there is no me that's actually looking at something. But there is a process that's running. The reason that this I, this self, this me exists is because of ignorance. How so? This is what I want to try and explain to you. How so? Have you been clubbing? Anyone gone to clubs? I used to, when I was with my friends at university, at the end of a semester, we used to go to a club or a pub or whatever. I've never taken alcohol in my life, but usually I would be someone who would take a Coke or something like that. So I had to drive my friends home. Okay? So when you go to a pub or a club, there's someone called a bouncer at the club. So the job of a bouncer, so this is if you think of someone like a security guard. So he has a uniform. In uniform he stands by the door, right? So he looks quite menacing, right? And you don't want to mess with this guy. A big built man, right? Usually. You don't want to mess with him. So he's a bouncer. So the reason that there's a bouncer at the entrance of a club or a pub is because, or it's generally a club, not more so than a pub. The reason you have a bouncer at the entrance of a club is because there's a certain type of people that they will entertain. You can't go in with your sneakers. You have to go in with proper shoes into a club. So they will bounce you if you go in dressed inappropriately. If you go in drunk, if you walk to the door drunk, intoxicated, then they're going to bounce you. This is why they're called a bouncer. It's like a ball bouncing on a wall. You're not permitted to go in. They will bounce you. No, off you go. You're not allowed to go in. So the job of a bouncer is to let those who are allowed to come in, and to deny access to those who are not supposed to walk in. You are not my type. You are not my caliber. You are not allowed to walk in. Please walk away. Please go away. The reason that there's a bouncer at the entrance of a club is because they have determined, the managers, the owners of the club, the proprietors of the club have determined that this is the kind of person we will entertain. If they fit this type, let them in. If not, then do not allow them to come in. This is the job of a bouncer. Now, we talked about 6 processes that are running in your system. For as long as you have your eye open, sights come in through the eye. The result of which is Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, which arises in the mind and passes away. However, because of ignorance, attachment arises. So ignorance and attachment, they go hand in hand, right? You can't have attachment without ignorance, then there's never going to be ignorance without attachment. They go hand in hand. Because of ignorance, which is accepting that there is pleasure to be found in sight, sound, smells, taste and touch. We all have preferences. Half of the world we like, the other half we don't like. There are sights that we like and there are sights that we don't like. This is why you all have a favorite color. Everyone has a favorite color. So when you have a favorite color, there are colors, there are those that fit that color you like to look at. Those that don't fit that color you don't like to look at. There are sounds that you like to listen to. Let's take songs for instance. You don't like to listen to everybody's songs. Not all artists' songs are you prepared to listen to. There are some that you like to listen to, and there are certain genres of music that you like to listen to, others that you don't like to listen to. But for as long as the ear is functioning, no matter what type of music is being played, whether it's classical or rock or funk or whatever, for as long as your ear is functioning, when that sound comes into your ear, it's going to result in Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arising in your mind and passing away momentarily. That is a process. But because of attachment, There are things you like, there are things you don't like. So, when there are things you like and when there are things you don't like, now you need a bouncer. Why do you need a bouncer? So you can bounce off the things you don't like. And you can accept the things that you do like. This is why you need a bouncer. So you have to hire a bouncer. If you are not familiar with a bouncer, think of a security guard that stands in front of a showroom or a fashion store. You know, most shops in Sri Lanka, you have security guards, right? They stand by the door, open the door for you, help you reverse your car, park your car. That's a very novel concept to me, but that's how it happens in Sri Lanka. Yes, sir? Casinos, yes, there you go. Have you been to a casino? Yes. So a lot of public places where they have to be careful, where they have to be discerning about who comes in and who's not allowed to come in. Because a casino is a good example, because you have to be a certain age before you're allowed to walk in. If you're not that age, then you're not allowed to walk into that store. And there are sometimes liquor stores. You're not allowed to walk into that store unless you're 18 or at least 16 in some countries. Otherwise, you're not allowed to walk into that store. This is what a bouncer does. Check, are you qualified to walk in? If you're qualified, you may walk in. If you're not qualified, I will bounce you. Now, when the mind has attachment, because of ignorance, certain things are pleasurable, other things are not. When the decision has been made that these are the things that are pleasurable versus these are the things that are unpleasurable, now you need a bouncer, do you not? The mind now needs a bouncer. This is where the mind creates a self to do the job of a bouncer. Because for as long as the eye is functioning, sights will just keep coming in. Because the eye is not discerning. Do you know what I mean by discerning? The eye does not discriminate. To the eye, any old sight, whether it's a flower or a poo, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the eye. Whether it's a rotten egg or a fried egg, the eye doesn't care. If it's a sight placed in front of the eye, what the eye's job is to take that sight and send it to your brain, and the brain will do the simple job that it's programmed to do, which is leave Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, an imprint, a sense imprint on your mind. But it's the mind that is discerning. The mind discriminates. The eye doesn't discriminate. The sight doesn't discriminate. Your brain doesn't discriminate, but your mind discriminates. The mind is very discerning. I like these things, I don't like those things. So therefore, the mind has to create a bouncer. And that bouncer is the self that we all have created. This is the reference point. This is the checklist. Does it fit? So the eye is open. Sight comes in. Now there's a bouncer standing by the mind. Okay, hang on. Let me check. What color are you? Pink. I don't like pink. Go. First it will come as a vipaka. That cannot be stopped. The first guy gets in. But as soon as the first guy gets in, now the mind checks. Is it my type? No. Right? I don't want any more of them coming in. Turn your head. Turn the other way. Close your eyes. The mind will instruct the eye. Close your eyes. This is what? Close the doors. Do not let those people come in and kick this guy out. This is the bouncer that you all have created. Because there are things in this world that you like and there are things in this world that you don't like. Now that's only half the story I wanted to talk to you about. Here's the other half. Now, I did think long and hard before I decided to share this with you. The reason I had to think several times about this is because if you're not clever, if you're not intelligent, then you will get this entirely the wrong way. And I wouldn't dream of delivering such a thing in a Sinhala sermon. but in an English sermon, because I think a lot of people who listen to these sermons are intelligent people who have better things to do than find faults and criticize for the sake of it. I thought I will share this with you. So you have to be very intelligent when you listen to what it is that I'm about to tell you. Are you vexing now? That's what I wanted to tell you. Attachment is the cause of all vexation. No, I'm just kidding. Let me tell you what I really wanted to tell you. So, there are these 6 processes that are running. Okay? 24/7. One of these 6 processes are always running. But you have a bouncer that the mind has created through ignorance. Why through ignorance? Because it's through ignorance that you have determined that there are certain things that are pleasurable, there are others that are unpleasurable, and therefore I am attached to the things that are pleasurable. I don't like the things that are unpleasurable, therefore I now need a bouncer so I can bounce the things I don't like and accept the things that I do like. Okay? All with me so far? Alright. There's a word called promiscuous. Do you know what that means? Okay, some people are nodding, so for other people I'll have to explain. To be promiscuous, and I have to be careful because we have young children here as well. To be promiscuous is to be not discerning in your associations with partners. Are you with me, or do you want me to go on? Let me put it this way. In a married relationship, okay, husband and wife, that's a discerning relationship. So that's an appropriate relationship for them to be together. Okay? But someone who is promiscuous is not discerning. They will bed anybody. Now, there's a word that is used to describe such people. It's very defamatory, it's very derogatory, and it's quite offensive. So I'm not going to use that word in a sermon. With our monks, I'm free to say that. But I can't say it out loud in a sermon like this. There's a derogatory term that is used, and I'm sure you will know it. A term that is used to describe, particularly this is used in society for women, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's generally to describe a woman who is promiscuous, who is not discerning in her relationships with men. So who will bed any man she can get her hands on. I'm not going to describe that any further. Okay? There's only so far I can go in a sermon. But you get the idea. Now, the nature of this kind of person, so pay attention because this will shock you to the core. If you really understand why I'm explaining this to you, this will shock you to the core, as it did to me. The nature of this person, of such a woman, is that she is not discerning in her relationships, and she will bed any man she can come across. So, she is usually regarded as a bad person in society, and people dislike that kind of character. They will shame such a person. They will defame such a person, right? And you can think of examples. You will have probably used words to blame other people, such words perhaps in either in Sinhala or in English, right? She's such person, right? You might have said like that. So this is the nature of that person. She's not discerning about who she beds, right? Now, I want you to think about the mind for a moment. There's a process, seeing. For as long as the eye is open and the sight comes in through the eye, the mind will go and attach to it. A mind that is ignorance and attachment will not hesitate to attach to the sight that just came through the eye. The mind is not discerning. The mind does not discriminate. The mind just wants to bed whatever sight just came through the eye. Whatever sound comes through the ear, whether it's good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, the nature of the mind is to entwine itself with that sound, to attach itself. Because it's not discerning. So it will go and bed whatever sound just came in through the mind, through the ear. Smell, taste, touch, the same goes. Now, in society, when you have a woman who is of that nature, we are very eager to shame such a person, to blame such a person, to tell that person off, you are such and such a woman. I can't begin to imagine how evil you are. You are the scum of the earth. People will use such words to offend them. But think about your mind for a moment. The nature of your mind. When a sight comes in through your eyes, does the mind even stop to think, is it good for me to attach myself to this sight? What's going to happen as a result? What is going to be the consequence of attaching myself to this sight? When a sound comes in through your ear, does the mind stop to ponder, to consider, what's going to happen if I attach myself to this sound? What's going to happen if I attach myself to this taste, to this smell, to this sensation? Does it stop to consider? No. Because ultimately all the mind wants is Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankhara Vijnana. And when the mind wants Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankhara Vijnana, the mind is willing to attach itself to any kind of sight, smell, taste, touch, sound, and so on and so forth. Just like this kind of person that we spoke of a moment ago, who is willing to bed anybody. The way I feel it, my mind is like that. So all my life, I think I'll be permitted to use the word prostitute, because that's a word that's not so offensive, and some people, it's a profession for them. I have nothing against them, by the way. But I'm not talking really about a prostitute. I'm talking about someone who is even less discerning. No scruples. I don't care who with. That kind of person. I feel my mind is like that. My mind doesn't care who it gets to bed with. Whatever sight comes, whatever sound comes, whatever smell, taste or touch comes along, all my mind wants to do is to bed it. Get to bed with it. Get to sleep with it. Yes, there is a bodyguard. The bodyguard's job, or the bouncer's job, is to discern based on what the mind itself has decided is good and bad. But ultimately, are there any sights that are worth looking at? Because are there any sights that are pleasurable, ultimately? No, because there's no pleasure to be found in sights or sounds or smells, taste or touch. Yes, a bouncer has been hired. A bodyguard has been hired, or a security guard has been hired to bounce what they don't like and only accept what they like. True. But the reason that this bouncer has been hired is because there are certain things that the mind has accepted. There are certain sights, sounds, smells, taste and touch that the mind has accepted as being pleasurable. Only to change tomorrow. Today, the mind will accept X. Tomorrow, it's going to be Y. Discerning just for now. Next moment, I'm willing to change. Because ultimately the reason that the mind treats this sight, sound, smell, taste, touch in this order, in this way, is because the mind accepts that there is pleasure to be found in the outside world. And when there's pleasure to be found in the outside world, it does not hesitate one moment to go and attach itself to the outside world, to the sight, sound, smell, taste and touch that comes from the outside world. This is why I say that this mind is very promiscuous. This mind of mine that has ignorance and attachment at its base, as its core, is promiscuous, is willing to sleep, willing to bed, any old sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. I feel ashamed of myself. I feel so ashamed of myself because all my life, and there have been occasions, and I'm sure in our lives, where you might have looked at a person of that nature and offended that person. And use that word. Offending other people. Only you didn't realize that the biggest prostitute ever was your mind itself. I wish I could use the word that I want to really say out loud, but I can't. So what the bouncer does, the bouncer reports to the chief. So the bouncer's there, bouncing off people that come along who do not fit this caliber, this set of specifications, and then it accepts those that fit the specification. But every time it does that, see, this is the danger with it, right? Remember, pleasure can only be achieved by relief from vexation. And we know that by now. Okay? When you have accepted that a certain sight has pleasure, is pleasurable. Okay, I'll take a simple example. Let's say you come to believe that the color green is pleasurable. Is green pleasurable? No. But for some, green is their favorite color. In other words, green is pleasurable. But green can never be pleasurable because it's just a color. Pleasure is not the characteristic of an object. It's the outcome of a process, like we discussed last week. Pleasure is the outcome of a process. The process being attach, go into state of vexation, relief from vexation, and now you experience pleasure. That is a process, is it not? So pleasure is the outcome of a process, not a characteristic of an object. So to find pleasure in the color green, first one must take on a view that green is good. Green is beautiful. When that view has been sedimented in one's mind, this drushtiya, once it has been planted in one's mind, now the mind starts to look. Remember, I think last week or the week before we talked about looking for something that you have lost. Searching for something that you have lost. A mobile phone, I think, was the example we used, or a pair of keys, pair of car keys. These keys that you hang on the key holder every day by the door, you see them as you walk out and in and out. But it doesn't bring you any amount of pleasure. But one day you want to go somewhere and you go running to your door, look at the key hanger, there's no key. Now you go into a state of vexation. Now you have to start looking for your keys. So you go seep in the house looking for your keys. You look outside, you look in the car, you look on the door, you look on your desk, you look under the desk, you look in your drawers, you look in your cupboards, you look in the bathroom, you look in the toilet. You never know where, right? So you just keep looking until you find it. So you're looking for something. Is it a pleasurable feeling? When you have to look for something? When you have to search something? No. Searching for something is not a pleasurable feeling. That is a very unpleasurable feeling. So what happens then when you find what you're looking for? Do you have to keep looking after you find it? No. Where you are looking for something, that's an unpleasurable feeling. The moment you find it, now you no longer have to look for it. You have just stopped an unpleasurable activity. Not the object. Remember, you have just stopped an unpleasurable activity. What's the activity? Searching, seeking, looking. No one likes to look, search, seek. That's not fun, is it? It's not fun. It's finding that is fun. Finding is fun not because fun is in the object. Finding is fun, or you feel pleasure when you have found something, because this activity, which was unpleasurable, which was painful, which was vexatious, has now come to a stop. When that activity has come to a stop, now you feel a sense of relief. That relief is what you feel as pleasure. But at that moment in time, because of ignorance, you believe that it's the object that I was looking for, which I have just found, brought me pleasure. Now, in answer to this gentleman's question, does the bouncer reinforce this ignorance? Indeed. How so? Because imagine you were looking for the color green. Because someone has instilled in your mind that green is a beautiful color. Now you keep turning your eyes, you're looking for green, you're walking everywhere looking for green. All of a sudden I show you green. The moment I show you green, now you can stop looking for green. Yes or no? Because you've just found green, right? Because you've just found green, you can stop looking for green. An activity which was painful, which was vexing, which was frustrating. What's the activity? Looking, seeking, searching. You have just brought to an end. As a result, now you feel pleasure. But there's this bouncer that was stood outside. It's the bouncer that permitted green to come in. Because the bouncer scanned this color and said, that's green. Let them in. Now the bouncer made that call because ignorance tells us that green is pleasurable. And every time the bouncer lets green come in and pleasure is now felt, this process is reinforcing itself. There's a word for that. I'm trying to remember. It's feeding itself. It'll come to mind in a moment. It's a vicious cycle. This is positive feedback. This is a vicious cycle. A vicious cycle because what you accepted initially as being pleasurable is the only thing that's being fed through as being pleasurable. And therefore, the mind continues to be bombarded with the things that it initially and originally accepted as being pleasurable. So now that's all that's coming through. So therefore, it continues to be reinforced that, yes, this is pleasurable. It keeps coming in. Oh, more pleasure. Yes, yes, yes. You can't break that loop. It just keeps feeding itself. So, again, let's go back to the beginning. There's a view that gets instilled, planted in the mind that green is beautiful, green is a nice color, green is a pleasurable color. So pleasure exists in green. This is the view that one takes on. Okay? Where did this view come from? Asatpurusha. Association with immoral, ignoble people. Putting immoral to a side, ignoble. Let's just go with that. Green is a beautiful color. It's a lovely color. The moment that this comes in, because remember, this view is being fed into someone who has experienced pleasure in the past. This is not being fed to someone who does not feel, who has never felt pleasure in their life. They have experienced pleasure. It's like this, right? I come to you and say, would you like pleasure? What are you all going to say? Of course. Why do you say you like pleasure? How do you know pleasure is a good thing? Because you've experienced it before, right? So when I can give you the promise of more pleasure, would you not be willing to accept that? You have experienced pleasure in the past, and you know that it gave you a good feeling. Therefore, I'm telling you now, I'm going to give you more pleasure. Would you like that? And you say yes. So remember, this could be the first time we are meeting each other in our lives. But you have experienced pleasure in the past. Therefore, I'm coming to you with a promise of something you have already experienced in the past. It's not something new. You have tried it out in the past and you liked it. Pleasure. So I come to you and say, I have a source of pleasure. Would you like it? Because you've already experienced pleasure in the past, you're going to say, yes, absolutely. What is it? I say green. I say green also brings you pleasure. Let's say your favorite color has so far been yellow. Okay, you have a series of colors that you like. Yellow, red, pink, orange. These are colors in which you find pleasure. Now I come to you and say, hey, there's another color which is pleasurable. Would you like me to show it to you? You're going to say, of course. For someone who has sought pleasure in color, when I am promising you there's yet another color that also has pleasure, you're going to say, of course, please let me have it. So I'm already working with someone who has experienced pleasure in the past. So remember that. Don't forget that. That's a really key point. So the job of an asatpurusha is really easy. It's not really that difficult. It's so easy because you have all experienced pleasure in the past. For how long? Throughout samsara. We have all experienced pleasure. The only thing we didn't know was pleasure is the outcome of a process, and at the beginning of that process is attachment and vexation. That much we didn't know. Because that is to see. What we've been doing is feeling. Yeah? Because what did the Buddha say? Pubbe ananusutesu dhammesu chakkung udapadi. Chakkung is sight, wisdom. I am now able to see, not feel. I'm able to see. We felt pleasure. The Buddha saw pleasure through wisdom. To see something is to see what it really is. What is its cause? How do you bring it to an end? And what is the path? Only someone who has seen all four of these is someone who has seen something. Others feel it. I don't know if I'm able to get the idea across. If I were to give this sermon in Sinhala, I'd be doing a much better job than I'm doing right now. I can sense it myself. Or I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying. Because there are no words in the language which can express some of these concepts to you. Yeah, because what the Buddha says is, this is a wisdom, it's a knowledge. A knowledge is not something you can feel. A knowledge is something that you can see. Or it's something that you have to be able to grasp with your wisdom. That is what a knowledge is. So when the Buddha says, I have been able to see pleasure, I'm able to understand pleasure, I'm able to analyze what pleasure is, he's talking about a knowledge. He's not talking about something that can be felt. We can all feel pleasure, but feeling is one. Discerning it with knowledge, with wisdom is something entirely different. Right? So for all of us, we've all felt pleasure in the past, innumerable times, immeasurable times in our samsara. When you are someone who says to me that red I find pleasure in, orange I find pleasure in, yellow I find pleasure in, already when I come and talk to you, you are someone who has experienced pleasure in the past. So it's not difficult for me to show you something also that can bring you pleasure. So all I have to say is, you know what? Green also brings you pleasure. And you are ready to accept it. Because you are already of the belief that pleasure comes from the outside world. You already have that belief. You are not someone who has come to this understanding of a sotapanna. I'm not talking about you as individuals. I'm just saying, this is the mindset of mundane people. Mundane people accept that pleasure comes from the outside world. So if red brought me pleasure, yellow brought me pleasure, orange brought me pleasure, then there's no reason why green can't bring me pleasure. So I've just met a salesman who tells me that green also has pleasure. Well, of course. And the moment I say that, now you start looking for green. You start looking for the color green. And the process of looking, that activity of looking, is a very vexing feeling. It's a very displeasurable, uncomfortable sensation. And the moment I show you green, now what happens? That activity of looking can come to an end. Now you don't have to look anymore, because I've just showed it to you. And I tell you, this is green. Now imagine this, right? Let's say you didn't know the color green. I really want to show this to you, that this is an entirely mental fabrication. Seriously, we are all mental. Seriously, we are mental. In the truest sense of the word, we are all mental. If you've never seen the color green, if you don't know what green is, I ask you one fine day, green is a really lovely color. I tell you, right? Green is a very lovely color. And as I'm saying that, I'm just holding this up like this. I'm not telling you that this is green. I'm just holding this up like this. Let me put the color to a side. I'll go back to my beetle leaf example. Okay? I tell you, a beetle leaf is a really pleasurable object. Right? There's a lot of ashwada in a beetle leaf. So I've told you that. Now, I didn't tell you that this is a beetle leaf. I'm just holding it in my hand like this as I'm talking to you. Not just in a matter-of-fact way. I'm just saying, by the way, a beetle leaf is a very pleasurable thing. Now what do you start doing? You start the activity of looking for it. Not realizing that what I have in my hand is a beetle leaf. So you start looking. So you're asking me, what's a beetle leaf? I say, well, a beetle leaf is, it's a funny shaped leaf. It's got a dark green color. I'm still got my leaf in my hand, okay? I have the beetle leaf in my hand. You're looking for a beetle leaf, just you don't know that this is a beetle leaf. You don't know that what I'm holding in my hand is a beetle leaf, but you're looking for a beetle leaf because I told you that a beetle leaf is pleasurable. Now you're looking for it. You're only going to stop looking for it the moment I say, this is a beetle leaf. But was it not in my hand all along? This was in my hand all along. I was talking to you about a beetle leaf. I was describing the kind of veins that they grow in, the kind of plant it is. I was talking about how you water that plant, how you grow that plant at home, where you might be able to find a beetle leaf. You can find it in a temple, you can find it alongside the road. I'm talking to you about all of those things, all the while holding a beetle leaf in my hand. But you're still looking, because you don't know what this is. If a beetle leaf is pleasurable, do I have to tell you that this is a beetle leaf before it brings you pleasure? Do I? No. The moment I hold this up in my hand, should you not be able to feel pleasure? You should. But do you? No, because you're still looking. You're still looking, but your eye can already see. Your eye is seeing the beetle leaf now, but your mind is still looking. This activity of looking, seeking, searching, you will only stop the moment I say, this is a beetle leaf. Now, the process comes to a stop. That activity, that vexing activity of looking comes to a stop, and all of a sudden you feel pleasure. This leaf was in my hand all along. But did you feel pleasure before I said this was a beetle leaf? No. So is it the leaf that brought you pleasure? No. And does it have to be a beetle leaf? I take any other leaf and I say, this is a beetle leaf. Now you go, oh. It doesn't even have to be a beetle leaf. It could be anything. It could be a leaf from a jackfruit tree. And I'm holding it in my hand. And I say, this is a beetle leaf. And now you go, ah. And that brings you pleasure. Is that because it was the leaf that had pleasure in it? No. But is it not the mind that was doing this activity of looking. So that bouncer is standing by the mind, now constantly looking out. Where is this? Where is this betel leaf? Come on. Where is my betel leaf? Looking. So it's bringing in everything, trying to find this betel leaf. Whatever sight comes to the eye, it's looking for, trying to find a betel leaf. This bouncer's got a really difficult job, because constantly it has to stand guard. Only bring in the things that the mind finds pleasurable, and stop all other things from coming in. It's not an easy job, this job of a bouncer. But it's because the mind has determined that pleasure is in the outside world, and therefore attached yourself to certain things, and others decided, no, they don't bring me pleasure, they bring me pain, only for this moment. Next moment that might change. But even that is a good example, a good point to understand that pleasure is not in the outside world. Because how can that change overnight? One guy likes chocolate cake, hates strawberry cake. Next day, he decides, actually, you know what? I like strawberry cake. I don't any longer like chocolate cake. How could it have changed overnight? If pleasure was in the cake, how could that have changed overnight? Did the cake change? No, the cake didn't change. What changed was the mind. So then, isn't pleasure an entirely mental fabrication? Can it be found in cake? No. One person you like the look of today, tomorrow you hate the look of that person. Friends become enemies. On one day, you love to spend time with that person. They say something to upset you. Next day, you won't go anywhere near that person. Same person. Day 1 pleasurable, day 2 unpleasurable. The person didn't change. Mind changed. Now because there are things that the mind is attached to, for as long as what comes from that person, what is said by that person fits within this set, right? If you remember, Guru Swami used to talk about sets a while ago. Right? There are sets of things that we like and sets that we don't like. This set is the self, what we have defined as a set. The universal set has everything in it. But what we do because of ignorance, this is the bouncer again. That set, the border of the set, the perimeter of the set, that is the bouncer. Only what has been defined by that set can come in. Other things cannot come in. Other things are not permitted. So if someone speaks to you today in nice words, how did those words become nice words? How does a dog talk nicely to another dog? It barks, right? That's how a dog talks nicely to another dog. What if someone came up to you and started barking? Is that nice? That's not nice. But when two dogs were talking to each other, a bark was a really nice word. But when someone comes and starts barking at you, that's not a nice word. So, what is a nice word then? Is it a bark? Is it the word? What's nice is what you have defined as being nice. You, each and every one of us, because of ignorance, we have come to decide that there are certain words which are nice, then there are certain words which are not nice. When you speak to me in nice words, I like you. When you speak to me in not nice words, offensive or bad words, I don't like you. So for as long as you talk to me in nice words, I will have our relationship with you. We will have this relationship. When you don't talk to me in nice words, then it's time to stop this relationship. We have defined our world. This is our bouncer. All because of ignorance. Do you see how much pain we bring upon ourselves because of ignorance? How much we torture ourselves because of ignorance? Just think about that for a moment. Right? Through ignorance, we have split this world in two. Just take color, for example. Because that's all our eyes can see, right? Color. Through ignorance, we have split this world in two. We have said, these colors I like, these colors I don't like. Have you just not made living on this world hell for yourself? Because it's through vipaka of previous karma that you get to see all types of color. But at this point in time, you have determined through ignorance that there are certain colors which are pleasurable, others which are not. But it's through vipaka of previous karmas that you are now seeing all sorts of different colors. Have you not just made life on earth hell for yourself? Because you can't stop which color comes in through your eye. That's a result of previous karmas. These are vipakas of previous karmas. No, you can't stop that. But because you have decided, through ignorance again, that these colors I like, these colors I don't like, now when half of those colors come in, you find pleasure. When the other half come in, now you get into conflict. You have made your existence so painful. You have made your existence painful, nobody else. You have made your existence unpleasurable, nobody else. And you did that by setting up this bouncer, hiring this bouncer, and giving this bouncer a specification. Here's what I like, here's what I don't like. Because if there are things you don't like, or if there aren't a set of things that you like, then there is nothing you don't like. For there to be something you don't like, mustn't there be something that you like? Yes? Yes. The reason you don't like color black is because you like color white. You like brown, therefore you don't like red. You like green, therefore you don't like yellow. What if there's no color that you liked in particular? Then any color goes. Anything goes. When anything goes, now life cannot be made hell for you. Because no matter what vipaka comes along, you are ready to accept anything. This is why, when you become an arahant, all the karmas you have done in the past, except for those which will bear fruit and vipaka, as physical pain, will come to an end. Let me put it this way. If you get to eat a delicious piece of chocolate cake, that is the result of good karma. Yes. Okay? If you get to eat something tasty, that you decide is tasty, that is the result of good karma. Is the result of good karma only until you become an arahant. When you become an arahant, from that point forward, only the karma which will bear fruit as vipaka on your physical body will from that point forward be karmas which are valid. All other karma will become void. Because for an arahant, there is no sight that is pleasurable and sights that are unpleasurable. There are no sounds that are pleasurable versus sounds that are unpleasurable. There are no smells or tastes that are pleasurable versus those that are unpleasurable. But for as long as you are not an arahant, all these karmas you have done in the past, which are due to bear fruit as vipaka, on the mind will bear fruit. They have the potential to bear fruit. Once you become an arahant, the only karmas that can bear fruit are those that can affect the body, not the mind. That's why they are called karma asthana. Karma asthana. I'm glad I'm not doing this sermon in Sinhala. Asthana is to displace. To displace something is asthana. Karma asthana. So when you do a karma asthana, Then you go through the process, because karmasthana can only be done by someone who has at least become a sotapanna. Before you become a sotapanna, karmasthana is not going to get you anywhere. You can't displace karma until you become a sotapanna. After you become a sotapanna, from sotapanna to arahant, what you are doing is displacing karma. Removing the environment, removing factors of the environment which are required for karma to take fruit. So when you become a sotapanna, what are the karmas? What are the environmental factors that you will remove? Therefore, certain karmas cannot bear fruit. Which ones? Absolutely. Being born in the 4 great hells. When you become a sotapanna, you have now removed all of the environmental factors which are essential for those karmas that you have done in the past, which are due to bear fruit, but can only bear fruit in the 4 great hells. They can no longer bear fruit because you are no longer creating the environment for that. That's why that's a karmasthana. Karma asthana. Then as you become an anagami, further you go along this karmasthana route and you keep removing this karma. Or actually you don't remove the karma, but you remove the environmental factors. By doing that, what you're doing is you're voiding the karmas. They become ahosi karma. So all those karmas you've done to be born in the 4 great hells, they are now void, null and void. They can no longer bear fruit because you no longer create the environment for them to come and take seed. That is what happens when you become a sotapanna. So when you become an anagami, all those karmas that can only bear fruit on a person who is born in the karma worlds can no longer take fruit, can no longer bear consequences. Because the environmental factors that are required for that have all been eradicated. So those karmas are void. They become powerless. They can no longer take place. And so once you become an arahant, all the karmas that can bear fruit on the mind have all been removed. The karmas are there. No, so it's not the karma that have been removed, but the environmental factors. Because how can you hurt an arahant's feelings? No. But so think about this, right? Before someone becomes an arahant, he goes and shouts at somebody in harsh words. Does not touch the person, so there's no physical contact, but he shouts at that person using abusive language, very offensive language. Isn't that a karma? What kind of vipaka do you think it's going to bring? Something similar, right? So if this person has hurt that person's feelings, then the vipaka is going to be something similar. Now, this person who committed that original sin has now become an arahant. What can be now said to hurt this person's feelings? Is there anything that can be said to hurt this person's feelings? No. Why? Because now they're an arahant. So the other person who was at the receiving end of that verbal abuse may come and still deliver the verbal abuse. But it's not going to have any effect on the arahant. Why? Because the environmental factors, the hetu, the causes have all been uprooted. As a result of that, that karma can no longer take place, can no longer have the intended effect. And one day when this arahant enters parinibbana, anupadisesa nibbana, which is life itself coming to an end, then all of the karmas, not just the mental ones but also physical ones, can no longer take effect. Because there's no being anywhere for even physical pain to take effect. This is the process of karmasthana. This is why it's called karmasthana. So this is what we are trying to do. We can't go back and change the karmas we've done in the past. Seriously, if you think about it, practicing the Noble Eightfold Path is trying to rig the system. This is trying to rig the system. There is a system. Kamma vipaka vattanti, vipaka kamma sambhavo, tasma punabhava hoti, evan loko pavattati. Karmas being vipakas. When the vipakas come along, then beings commit even more karmas, and then karma vipaka, vipaka karma, karma vipaka, vipaka karma, another vicious circle. This is what keeps the world going. This is the Buddha saying. Right? Kamma vipaka vattanti, vipaka kamma sambhavo, tasma punabhavo hoti. This is how punarbhavaya, existence, this is how it happens. Evang loko pavattatiti. This is how the world continues to be. So this is how the system works. When one has become a Sotapanna, they have started to try to rig the system. I'm no longer happy with the system. They're going to bring the system to an end because they've just found a loophole. This is like Prison Break. Watch Prison Break? Yes, this is Prison Break. You've just found a loophole. There is a loophole in the system. The loophole in the system is, the moment you realize that pleasure cannot be found in the outside world, the moment you understand anicca dukkha anatta, you have just exploited the loophole. That is the only loophole there is. Otherwise, this system is perfect, except for one loophole. It's like the Matrix. There's only one loophole. If you exploit that loophole, you will sure and short get out of this. But it takes a Supreme Buddha to discover that loophole. Anicca dukkha anatta is the loophole. For as long as beings are ignorant of anicca dukkha anatta, for as long as beings are ignorant that this world is vexatious, for as long as they are of the belief that the world is pleasurable, for as long as they believe that this world brings us pleasure, the world brings us joy and happiness, then forever they will continue to do meaningless, futile, essenceless activities of indulging in sensuality, indulging in a sensual world, and continuing to go through the process of kamma vipaka vattanti, vipaka kamma sambhavo, kamma vipaka vattanti, vipaka kamma sambhavo. This is what we've been doing. So this is why I say you can't reverse the fact that you've done karmas in the past. They can't be undone. But what you can do is now rig the system such that those karmas don't come and pay vipaka. That can be stopped. I mean, if you think about it, it's a really unfair system. It's really unfair that you can rig the system. Don't you think so? Don't you think that the Buddha did something that's really unfair? When you consider the system as a whole, right, of the world and continued existence, beings perform karmas. As a result of those karmas, they have to bear the consequences, good or bad. When those consequences come along, in turn they do karmas again, and then those karmas being vipakas again. It's a nice system, isn't it? It just keeps rolling. What the Buddha comes and does is he looks for a loophole in the system. All things considered, what he did was so unfair. Instead of just rolling through the system, he wanted to find somehow to get out of this. Because he realized, I don't like this system. You know what he really thought? I don't like that I have to suffer the consequences of my past bad karmas. Is that not unfair? From one perspective. Someone saying, I don't like to suffer the consequences of my bad karmas. In a true system of justice, you should have to suffer the consequences of your bad karmas. Yes or no? That is a true system of justice. So someone comes and says, I don't like that. I don't like that I have to suffer the consequences of my bad karmas. Therefore, I'm going to find a loophole out of this system. Once he became the Buddha, as a bodhisattva, all that 6 years of asceticism, extreme asceticism, Wasn't that bad karmas bringing fruit? The reason that he had to go through 6 long years of torturing his body, if I remember right, was because he had offended a Pacceka Buddha on one occasion. I think on 6 occasions, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is right, but I will check next week and confirm this. If I'm not mistaken, I think on 6 occasions, sorry, not a Pacceka Buddha, Supreme Buddha, another Supreme Buddha was around and he was invited to go and listen to a sermon from another Buddha in one of his previous births. So this is Gautama, the Bodhisattva, our Bodhisattva, Gautama Bodhisattva, was invited to go and listen to a sermon being delivered by another Supreme Buddha on 6 occasions. And on each of those occasions, he used offensive language towards that Buddha and said, no, who wants to go and listen to those sermons? What a waste of time that is. This was before he ever decided, I want to be a Buddha. Now, for every time he used abusive language, that's 1 year for each time he said that. This is why 6 long years of extreme asceticism, physical torture, he had to go through that. Again, results of bad deeds. But to think of it, once he became the Buddha, now all that can take result is pain on the physical body, not on the mind. This is why I say, if you go and shout at somebody, you're not physically touching that person. You're not causing any physical abuse. Nothing, zero. All you're doing is you're shouting at that person. This is verbal abuse, not physical abuse, right? Verbal abuse can only take effect if that person can listen, can hear, and how can you, okay, let's say you get really angry with a Russian guy. You try to get onto the bus, and this guy jumps in front of you, or you go and you want to catch a seat. He goes and sits before you. You think, that's my seat. You shouldn't have gone and sat there. Now you go and stand in front of him, and you start shouting at him in Sinhala. All the bad and filthy words that you start throwing at his face. What's he going to say? He's just going to be smiling at you. At the end, he'll go, are you okay? He might ask. In Russian. You can't affect that person. You can't affect him because he doesn't understand the language. Much the same way, you can't affect an arahant mentally because they don't have the causes that are required to bring pain, bring suffering. Because what's the only thing that can bring mental suffering? Attachment. Remove attachment, nothing in this world can bring anybody any mental suffering. No amount of abuse can bring anybody any mental suffering if there is no attachment. So an arahant or a Buddha is someone who has zero mental attachment. Because there is no mental attachment, there is no way you can hurt their feelings. There is no words you can throw at them that's going to cause them any amount of frustration, anger, resentment. No, you just can't do it. Impossible. It's just impossible. But physically, you can abuse them. This is why Devadatta was able to push a rock which hurt the Buddha's leg. This is why on several occasions the Buddha had a splitting headache he used to complain of. He went thirsty on some occasions. He wanted Venerable Ananta to go and look for water, complaining about severe thirst. These are all occasions where he had to experience physical pain, but never mental pain. Because mental pain is mental frustration, mental suffering is caused by attachment. What is physical suffering caused by? Yes, bodily sensations. The presence of a body that can experience things. But what if he went into a coma? No? No, nothing. That's why they put you under anesthesia when they perform a surgery. So you don't feel the pain. They could cut your arms and limbs off, you don't even know it until you regain consciousness. Because at that moment in time, they have removed the causes which bring you the vipaka. Now imagine before there was anesthesia, when people underwent surgery, how must it have been? Can't even begin to imagine. Right? Imagine something like pulling a tooth out. Because of the proximity to the brain, these sensations are so severe. Imagine pulling a tooth out without any anesthesia. That would be in hell on earth, right? So that was the kind of thing that people had to go through because they didn't have a way to stop that karma from taking vipaka. But science can help with that. So this is how when science invents anesthesia, now science is able to stop vipaka coming on to the physical body, but not to the mental, not to the mind. Science can't do anything about the mind suffering, but science can help stop physical suffering. Medicines, food, clothing, shelter, aren't these all gifts of science? Gifts of science. But none of these can help mental suffering. They can all help physical suffering though. So the presence of a physical body that can experience physical sensations is the cause for physical suffering. So when an arahant dies or passes away, enters parinibbana, now there is no mind and there is no body. Therefore, no karmas can ever take effect again. According to the Buddha's teaching, there's only one cause for suffering, and that's attachment. If there's ever a pill that can reduce attachment, then I will accept that. If you create a drug, when you take which attachment is reduced, I will accept that mental pain, mental suffering can be treated by drugs and medicines. There is something does happen. Yes, this is numbing of sensations perhaps. Perhaps it's the brain. But the only reason that mind suffers is because of attachment. If you are doing nothing about attachment, there is nothing you can do to stop suffering. But I'm not going to go there because it's going to be a can of worms. But I think what's really interesting to understand here is actually, the Buddha is one who rigged the system. He found a loophole. And the loophole was, the moment you understand anicca dukkha anatta, now you have found a way to get out of this, so that you don't have to suffer the consequences of your own bad deeds. Ask me, that's so unfair. In a true system of justice, that is so unfair. You don't have to suffer the consequences of your own bad deeds. We're not talking about suffer consequences of someone else's. You don't even have to suffer the consequences of your own bad deeds. But that is what the Buddha gifted us. And no one can stop you. Someone can stop you from jumping out of prison. Yes. But how can anyone stop you from eradicating attachment? They can't. So once you find the loophole, no one can stop you from getting out of the system. Then you become invincible. You cannot be stopped. No force of Mara. If you become a Sotapanna, no force of Mara can stop you from attaining Nibbana. Because you have discovered the loophole. Incredible, isn't it? It's fascinating. Just to think about how the mind of the Buddha might have worked, I can't say, I can't even begin to imagine. But the way I see it, he rigged the system. He broke out of prison. Fascinating. So, this is what, you need to think about. Pleasure can never be found in the outside world. I think throughout a number of sermons, giving you lots of different examples, we have covered this time and time again. Again, as I said today, this leaf was in my hand all along. I told you, would you like to see a beetle leaf? I had this in my hand all along. You said, yeah. Can I see it? I've got this in my hand all along. But the one thing I didn't tell you is that this is a beetle leaf. So you're just waiting for me to show you a beetle leaf. If it's the beetle leaf that brings you pleasure, then do you require me to tell you that this is the beetle leaf? Do you require me to tell you that? No. The moment I held this up in my hand, you should be able to experience pleasure. But you didn't. Which means you were still looking. You were still searching. And that process of searching, that process of looking, that activity is one of vexation, is one of frustration, pain and suffering. The moment I said, this is a leaf, a beetle leaf, now that activity came to a halt. At that moment, a vexatious activity, a painful, frustrating activity came to a halt. Relief from that pain brought you pleasure. Ignorance told you it was the leaf that brought you pleasure. That's the bouncer reinforcing the message. Vicious circle. There's only one loophole out of this vicious circle, and that is anicca dukkha anatta. Anicca is what again? This world is vexatious. Because what arises passes away. Everything that arises passes away. I'm not necessarily talking about this leaf. Remember, when your mind is looking at or when your eyes are looking at this, in your mind, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arose. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana passed away. In the flash of a second, it's done that 1 billion times. So 1 billion times, it's like showing this to you and hiding it again. Showing this to you and hiding it again. Is it not? Imagine that for a moment. If your frame rate of your mind, let's say, was 60 hertz, so that's 60 times a minute. That's your mind's frame rate. Okay? So your Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arises 60 times a second and passes away 60 times a second. That's like showing this to you, hiding it, showing this to you, hiding it, showing this to you, hiding it 60 times a minute, right? Because it doesn't matter that I'm holding this leaf like this. At the moment where Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana has passed away, at the moment that your mind, that chitta has passed away, you're not seeing this until the next chitta arises. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have the eye open, there's this object in front of the eye, but in the mind, chittas have to arise and pass away. How do we know that chittas arise and pass away? What number is this? What number is this? How could you tell? If a chitta didn't arise and pass away, you'd be stuck at this, wouldn't you? You wouldn't be able to see me do this. So you do know that chittas arise and pass away. Sometimes you look outside when it's raining. You can see droplets of water falling from the sky. So you should know that at least at that rate, chittas arise and pass away. If you see someone turning a wheel of fire, right? At least at that rate, chittas are rising and passing away. Otherwise you wouldn't see it turn. Are you with me? When you see a fan turning, at least at that rate, chittas are rising and passing away. So, when an object is in front of the eye, chitta arise, passes away, chittas arise, pass away, arise, pass away. If that happens at 60 times a minute, then the same, you could get the same effect by having a static chitta and removing the object 60 times a minute. Imagine chittas didn't arise and pass away and it was just static. I remove the object 60 times a minute. Same effect, right? Show it, hide it. Show it, hide it. Show it, hide it. The same effect, I keep the object and the chitta arises and passes away 60 times a minute. Same effect. Yes or no? Same effect. So your chittas arise and pass away 60 times a minute. 60 times a minute, this is just a number, okay? Not 60 times, it happens 1 billion times a minute. 1 billion times a second. So 60 times a minute, your chitta has arise. Now you see the object. Now it passes away. Again you are looking for it. Where's it gone? Again another chitta arises. Thank God, I've just seen it. Again it passes away. Where is it? It's gone, missing. Again it arises and it passes away. Where is it? Someone's taken it away. Come on, bring it back. Imagine that happening at 1 billion times a minute. 1 billion times a second? It's like losing something that you love at a rate of 1 billion times a second, and then finding it at a rate of 1 billion times a second. Now can you imagine that sensation? Pleasure, vexation, pleasure, vexation, pleasure, vexation. How many times? 1 billion times a second. This is why Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana are vexatious. Because no matter, even if this world was static, even if Rupas didn't arise and pass away, even Rupas do arise and pass away, the outside world, all of these things, they arise and pass away. But we need not concern ourselves about that. Because we can't stop that from happening. Besides, even if we were able to stop arising and passing away of the outside world, what we need to understand is the chittas in our mind arise and pass away at such a rapid rate that it really doesn't matter whether the outside world arises and passes away. Are you with me with that? Did you understand what I just said? It doesn't matter that whether the outside world arises or passes away. It really doesn't matter, because in our mind, our chittas arise and pass away at such a rapid rate. And therefore, the effect is like something that you like is taken away from you at the same rate. There's a beautiful flower, or let's say your child, okay? Your child, standing in front of you. As a parent, you love to look at your child. Now imagine, someone comes and takes your child away. You close your eyes, you open your eyes, your child's gone. You close your eyes, you open your eyes, your child's back again. You close your eyes, open your eyes, and the child's gone. Close your eyes, open your eyes, the child's back again. Again close, gone. Open again, come back. Gone again. Imagine that happening 1 billion times a second. Every time the child's disappeared, now you're going, what? Where's my child? Next moment the child's appeared again. Oh, thank God. Again, child's gone. Now again the mother's looking for the child. Again, appeared. Gone, appeared. Gone, appeared. Imagine that happening at 1 billion times a second. It happens so rapidly that you don't feel it happening at such a rate. But ultimately, it's only the chittas that arise and pass away. This is the only way you experience the world. So ultimately, your chitta, your mind, is really going through that torture at the same rate. This is something we have to see through wisdom. So it doesn't matter if your child is physically standing in front of you. It doesn't matter. Your child might physically be standing in front of you, but to you, this child is disappearing at 1 billion times a second and reappearing 1 billion times a second. And the moment it disappears, you start looking for the child. Where's my child gone? And it's back again. Sigh of relief. Next moment, gone. Where's my child? Next moment, back. Sigh of relief. Isn't that torture? Isn't that torture? Yes, sir. That is the property of the mind. See, this is why when we use the word vexatious or pelenasulu, right? This is the singular word that we have come to use. When we use the word vexatious, let me ask you this, right? I have this betel leaf in my hand, in my right hand, and this winnowing fan in my left. Ask the winnowing fan, is this betel leaf vexatious? What's he going to say? What's it going to say? Did you understand my question? Now we have come to understand that all objects, Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, they're all vexatious. Yes? Is this betel leaf vexatious to us? Yes. That's the key word. To us. It's subjective. This is what I'm trying to prove to you. You ask this winnowing fan, is this betel leaf vexatious? What's it going to say? No. Why is it not vexatious? Because this doesn't have a mind. You need a mind in which attachment can arise for something to be vexatious. For there to be a mother, there has to be a child. Whether someone's a mother is subjective. Because it depends who you ask, right? Is this your mother? Depends who you ask. If you ask a person's husband, is this your mother? No. Ask the child? Yes. So it's subjective. And likewise, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha, all of these are vexatious, subjective. Because we all have a mind which arises and passes away, in which attachment can arise. That is why this world, everything, every object is vexatious. The day you don't have a mind anymore, then this world is not vexatious. Is water dangerous to a fish? No. But is it dangerous to an ant? Yes. So if you ask the question, is water dangerous? Depends who you ask. It depends who you ask. So is this vexatious? Depends who you ask. But the Buddha came into this world not to help this winnowing fan attain Nibbana. The Buddha came into this world to help us beings who have a mind in which attachment can arise, attain Nibbana. And this is why he says, all rupa, rupam bhikkhave anicca. All rupa are vexatious. All shabda gandha rasa sparsha are vexatious. Rupa vedana sanya sankara vijnana are vexatious. It's subjective. To us, we have a mind in which attachment can arise, therefore all conditioned objects are vexatious. Did you understand that? Good question. Did you have a question, sir? Okay. I think we had better conclude the sermon because I know you have a long way to go. You have a long way to go, don't you? We all have. So there was a lot we talked about in today's sermon. I think it would be good to go back and listen to it if you find the time. Now what excuses come to mind? Remember, the only reason you have excuses is because you have yet to be diagnosed with terminal illness. The day you are diagnosed with a terminal illness, the day you are diagnosed with terminal cancer, no more excuses. Then you will be here every day. You will be meditating, listening to sermons 24/7. You will not fall asleep. Nothing will happen. From that point forward, you will be so alert. This is a human condition. Try and break through it. It's really a pity. I'll tell you about myself, because I don't like to be someone who just comes and talks to you to change your lives and I do nothing with mine. When I first ordained, in my lay life, I was used to about 7 hours of sleep in my lay life, because work was tough, I must admit. So this is how I rested myself, about 7 hours of sleep. After I ordained, I cut that down. I got used to about 6 hours of sleep. And then one day, at the end of one of Guru Swami Mahansa's sermons, I met this man who came and spoke to me at the end of the sermon. And so he was talking to me about how he has lots of chores to attend to. And he says he's a 3-wheel driver. So he says he wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And when he wakes up, the first thing he does is he obviously goes and washes up into the bathroom. So he starts to listen to sermon there. And then he cooks food for his family along with his wife. And then takes the children in his 3-wheeler, goes and drops them at school. Takes the wife and drops her at work. And then he has to wake up early in the morning, otherwise when he goes to the 3-wheeler stand, if he goes in late, he's not going to be able to get a hire. So he has to go in early in the morning. And then he says, so throughout the day he has to obviously run on errands, attending to customers and taking them around. And then obviously he has his lunch sometimes along the way. And he says usually by the time he finishes his hires, it's about 7 o'clock. After that he has another job that he goes to. So and I couldn't ask him what that was, but he attends to that job, and I think about 10 o'clock he comes back home. And then from 10 to about 11 o'clock he spends some time with his family, helping his children with his homework. about 11 o'clock, and then 11 to 12 he gets ready for the next day, and then 12 o'clock he goes to bed, only to wake up at 4 o'clock the following morning. So this man, he has 4 hours of sleep. And throughout the day, he finds every opportunity to listen to sermons. So he's talking to me about his story, his life. So when he wakes up in the morning, first thing he goes to the bathroom and listens to sermons. As he's cooking, he's listening to sermons. He's got his earphones always plugged in. As he's driving, when he gets a chance, he's listening to a sermon. If he waits for the next hire to come along, he's listening to a sermon. So after listening to him, I felt really ashamed about myself, I must admit. I was thinking about this man, he's got a family to feed. He's got 2 jobs to do. He has to run around every day in the hot sun, driving his 3-wheeler around. Right? A second job, has to come and feed his family, be with his children, get them to do their homework, and after all that, he only gets 4 hours of sleep. I felt so ashamed of myself that I have become used to 6 hours of sleep. So from that day, I changed my lifestyle. I cut down my sleep to 4 hours. We have to change. How can I listen to that man say that he only gets 4 hours of sleep and I go and sleep for 6 hours? I don't do half the things that he does. He has 2 jobs, I don't have any. He has a family to feed, I don't have a family to feed. I felt so ashamed of myself. And then I cut down my sleep to 4 hours. Only until the next man comes and tells me that he survives on 3 hours of sleep. I'm hoping I don't find him soon. Sometimes, listening to how you live your lives, I do feel ashamed about how I live mine, even after having been ordained, because I do know, you have lots going on in your lives, and despite all that, you dedicate time to practicing the path, listening to sermons, and then I ask myself, I have 24 hours a day dedicated to this. How much of that time do I put to practicing the path? So constantly I use that as a reminder. I look at your lives and continuously fine-tune mine to make sure that I don't do injustice to you and the alms that you bring to feed my hunger, because it wouldn't be right for me to enjoy sleep, eating the food that you bring, having worked so hard and only had 3 or 4 hours of sleep a day. That wouldn't be right. So I fine-tune my life just so that I'm not a disgrace to you. Well, what I'm inviting you to do is, find yourself a hero like that. Everyone's a hero out there. Only we are the coward. Everyone out there is a hero. Everyone has a heroic story to tell. We are the cowards. There's so much we can learn from other people. Isn't there? So much we can learn from other people. If only you listened. But people are so eager to say their part, not listen to what other people have to say. So if you pay attention, there's so much you can learn, even from young children, little children. So much you can learn to transform your lives. Little things, that'll be enough. Little change every day, that's the best way to do it. Not great, massive leaps overnight. That doesn't work. It doesn't stand the test of time, and it fails the test of endurance. Small things, over time. Incremental changes. That is what works. So make small changes in your lifestyle. If you wake up in the morning every day and you put on your FM, perhaps tomorrow you can listen to a sermon. For that 10 minutes, 15 minutes it might be. Maybe that's all the time you have. While you're brushing your teeth. But your hand's doing the job. You don't need your mind to think about brushing. Just play a sermon in the background. And you don't have to play it for everyone else at home to listen. Then it could be a pain to other people. Just for your own self. If you have a mobile phone on which you have a sermon, MP3 file or something, just place it next to your sink, maybe. Play it, and then you can do your washing up. You can wash your dishes, do the laundry, whatever. Make use of the time that you have without coming up with excuses. Because excuses or not, at the end of the day, you and I are both going to have to sit the same paper. And that day, let's hope we don't regret. Yes? Okay, right. Let's conclude the sermon then. Remember the story about the prostitute? Don't forget where that number one prostitute is. It's not out there. Where is he? Where is she? In the mind. No matter what sight, no matter what sound, no matter what smell, taste or touch comes along, he and she is ready to bed it. How disgraceful. How pathetic. How disgusting. Biggest prostitute ever. Always with us. At least the person outside who has taken it up as a livelihood only started doing that ever since he or she was, say, age 20 or 25 or 30. When did we start doing it? Ever since the beginning of samsara. You know, they say that's the oldest profession, right? Prostitution. So true. I am one right now. So true. It's only an arahant who has given up prostitution. Yes or no? Don't take the literal sense of the word. Okay? You promised me you will take that intelligently and clever and wisely. So it's to an intelligent and wise audience I wanted to share that. But it's now a karmasthana of mine. How I am engaged in this disgraceful act of bedding every sight, sound, smell, taste and touch that comes my way. Disgusting. To think that that's what I've been doing ever since I came into this world, ever since I've been doing in samsara, ever since I came into this samsara. Prostitution. Disgusting. Okay. So let us transfer the merits that we have all acquired today to all those who deserve these merits, and we will conclude the sermon. First and foremost, let us take a moment to remind ourselves once again that it is because of the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the Unvanquished One, the Undefeatable One, the Omniscient One, that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because He sacrificed Himself over many countless eons in samsara for the liberation of all sentient beings that we have the gift of Dhamma today. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasak, Upasikas who dedicated their lives to protecting and preserving the Dhamma, to passing it down through our ancestors, all the way through down to us. It is thanks to them that today we have the Tripitaka, which we can study and understand and help us attain the path to Nibbana. May through the power of these merits that we have all acquired today, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes and be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha, wherever in the world they may be, Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, throughout the world, as well as the Mahanayakas, the Anunayakas of all the chapters that represent the Mahasangha. As well as that, let us not forget to take a moment to transfer merits to the monks and nuns of your local temples and nunneries, reminding ourselves that although you have come along today to this monastery to listen to the Dhamma, to make offerings to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, it is those monks and nuns who have always been by your side in your local temples and nunneries. Through thick and thin, come rain or shine, it is always them who have been by your side, been your guidance, been your support, been there to provide you with advice and help you stand on your own 2 feet. It is those monks and nuns who also donned robes, went forth to attain the bliss of Nibbana and dedicate their lives towards that, have today put aside time in their valuable and precious lives to your betterment, to your benefit. So let us take a moment to transfer merits to them as well. May they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May they all through the power of these merits, abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the Supreme Bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons, and the dead that we invited at the start of this sermon, as well as those beings who will have been our ancestors, those who will have predeceased us throughout our infinitely long journey in samsara. Anyone and everyone who might have been a mother, father, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, nephew, grandparent, so on and so forth, or perhaps teachers, not just in this birth but in our previous births. Anyone who might have helped us, assisted us, supported us in any way, shape or form, in whatever capability, in whatever capacity that they could, whatever help or assistance that they might have provided us with, let us take a moment to remind all of them. If any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they redeem themselves from those woeful planes, be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the Supreme Bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces who fought a 30-year-old long war to protect and preserving the peace and harmony of our country. It is thanks to them that today we can live alongside each other despite our differences in views and opinions. It is because they sacrificed their lives to our peace and harmony that today we are able to enjoy the peace and harmony that we have all come to accept for granted. It is thanks to them that today we are able to put aside time to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, to listen to Dhamma sermons and live a good life. So, may through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the Supreme Bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women who might have lost their lives in the war, as well as men and women who might have lost their lives due to natural calamities and disasters such as the tsunamis, not just in Sri Lanka but also hailstorms and thunders and things like that throughout the world, natural disasters. They could have been your friends and family, or most probably perhaps men and women who were not friends or family, but that will only have been in this birth. Let us not forget that every man and woman, there ever is, there ever was and there ever will be, will have been a mother, will have been a father to each and every one of us, more times than there are grains of sand on this planet. So, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes, be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, practice the Noble Eightfold Path, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, practice the meritorious deeds, and attain the Supreme Bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women who have made this program a success, and in helping in whatever shape and way and form that they could. Perhaps there are those among you who have organized this sermon, arranged the venue for this sermon so that it could take place, perhaps invited others to be here today, perhaps provided transport to others to be here today. Perhaps there are those among you who have brought along food to help sate the hunger, quench the thirst of those who are coming along today to listen to these sermons. May they all also be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also transfer merits to all those men and women who have dedicated time out of their lives to helping live our lives as easily as we possibly can, reminding ourselves about those men and women who are looking after your businesses, your enterprises, your ventures. It is thanks to them that today you have the free time to be here today and listen to these sermons and practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Also members of your family who may be today looking after your children, looking after your elderly parents. It is thanks to them that today you have the freedom of time to come along, listen to these sermons and dedicate time to practice the Noble Eightfold Path for your salvation. But remember that it is they who have made that sacrifice on your behalf. So, may through the power of these merits, they all be able to rejoice in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the Supreme Bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through all the merits that we have all acquired today in preaching this sermon, listening to this sermon, by organizing this event, by making this event possible in whichever shape and form that you could, by decorating this stage on which I am sat as a dedication, as a puja to the Dharma Ratna, not to me, but to the Dhamma. May, through all the merits that we have all acquired today, in whichever way and shape or form that anyone might have contributed, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahants in this blessed land in our very life itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the power of all the merits that we have all acquired today, you and I be able to become one of those Arahatun Vahanses, one of those Arahat Mehin Vahanses, in this very birth itself, in the era of the Gautama, Lord Buddha itself, in this very human life itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of desire. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of aversion. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of delusion. May I and all beings in all worlds attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.